Man is back.
Oh, okay, boys. Oh my gosh, the ring got messed up. This is a 5 out of freaking 5.
It is beat making time.
Next week is E3 week. My album comes out next week.
I have the leopard.
This is your boy.
Alright, ladies and gentlemen of the YouTube citizens, y'all know who this is. This is your boy Dash the True Inferno. Back at it with another Pokemon Unite commentary video gameplay for you guys, and this is the last one of the year. So y'all know what happens here. So I tend to give you guys my top 10 movies of the year, which will feature some honorable mentions. So now I rewatched the video that I did, tells of like the most anticipated movies of this year. And a lot of the movies that I mentioned in that video actually came out because I was not 100% sure, rather, that all of these movies were coming out. Now, granted, all of them did not come out this year, but the majority of them did, which is shocking. I will admit that did catch me by surprise. So kudos to these companies for coming out with these movies. But let's not waste any time because this is going to be a long video. Let's start things off with my number 10 on this list. Let's get to it. Number 10. The Marvels. So the Marvels came out November 10th worldwide, but Las Vegas got an early release date as it came out on November the 7th. And this was done under, y'all come on now. This is Marvel. Marvel Studios was the production company, and it was distributed by Walt Disney Studios and Motion Pictures. So what was this movie about? So basically the three Marvel heroes basically got together because they had to deal with the Kree Empire. So basically what's going on is this. Carol Danvers, who is Miss, so it's weird because two of them are known as Miss or Captain Marvel. You got Captain Marvel, and then you got the kid, Miss Marvel, who is based off a Disney Plus show that I haven't seen yet. And then there's a third chick, the black chick, who is based off of WandaVision, and she's like, I guess she's like a Marvel in some way, shape, or form. I'm not sure how, but yeah, so that actually is the thing. So basically what's going on is the three got together as they have to basically defeat the main villain by the name of Dora Ben. Yeah, that's the name, Dora Ben, who is the Kree leader. So basically she managed to grab the universal weapon, which is similar to a bracelet that Miss Marvel have. So basically there's quantum bands. So there's two of these quantum bands apparently. One of them Miss Marvel have, and the other one somehow Dora Ben ended up getting. I don't recall how she ended up getting that. And basically the thing is she's basically taking these natural resources from other planets, like to basically help her own planet. Because her own planet is like filled with darkness. There's no water there. There's no sun. And I remember says it correctly. I believe they don't have an atmosphere either. I don't remember. So she goes around to other planets and steal their stuff. And this is all because of what Captain Marvel did in her first movie, where basically she went on to destroy the Supreme Intelligence. And in the process of doing that, it basically led to the desolation of the Kree home world. And it led to a civil war as well. So basically, it did lose its air supply. It lost air, water, and sunlight. So the new leader, Dora Ben, goes out with the quantum band and basically steals this stuff from other planets. So she stole air from one planet, and then she went to another planet to steal the water. Now she went to the Earth, or she wants to go to the Earth to steal their sun. So basically, and then of course the three Marvels have to learn to coexist to stop them. And at the same time, because of how similar their powers are, they would switch in places with each other. So that's another thing that they had to deal with as well. And the reason why this movie is number 10, despite it being a Marvel movie, the reason why this movie is number 10 is because, and not higher, because of the fact that there are two quantum bands in this movie. And you would think that even though Dora Ben saw Miss Marvel, but you would have think she would have saw that Miss Marvel had the other quantum band, and yeah, she wanted to steal air for her planet, water for her planet, sunlight for her planet, things of that nature. But you would think that she would have saw the other quantum band. She will be trying to get that as well. But that was never a thing. That never happened until much later in the movie. Basically, the final battle scene where that's when she realized, oh, snap. Miss Marvel here got the other quantum band. Let me take that from her. Eventually, she did. but it was too much power for her to control, and she ended up killing herself because of that. Speaking of killing themselves, it appeared that the black chick killed herself to save, I think, either the universe or Earth, whatever the case may be, although that's not the case. She was transported to a different multiverse or different dimension, something like that, which has a very interesting ending, which involves the X-Men. So that was pretty interesting. I can't wait to see where that goes. So that's going to be extremely interesting, if I do say so myself. So I thought that the fact that there was not enough emphasis on the fact that there were 2 quantum bands, I think that hurt this movie. And the whole Dora Bean thing, it's kind of hard to take them seriously, kind of, because of the whole Creed situation. Because the Creed, even though I'm not a comic book guy, so I'm not really all about the Marvel comics, but I'm not naive. I know how big the Creed are. So she kind of make the Creed looks weak, I feel like. So that's another reason why this is like number 10 is not higher, but it's still better than the honorable mention movies that are out there. So there's that. So that's my number 10. Now let's move on to number 9, the Super Mario movie. Okay, so this one came out first in LA, called LA Live. So this is in downtown LA. That came out on April 1st, April Fool's Day. And then 4 days later, it came out all throughout the United States on April 5th. And there's no mention of it coming out of Japan on Riki. And I think it did come out in Japan, but nevertheless, it came out. So this joint came out under Universal Pictures, Illumination, and Nintendo. Those were the production companies, and it was distributed by Universal Pictures. So here's the thing. Mario and Luigi are brothers who are also plumbers out in Brooklyn, New York. And basically, they left their old job, their ex-employer Spike, and they try to start their own business. And they got their first job. It didn't necessarily go well because of the dog and things of that nature. Well, what happened was this, and obviously, really their father didn't really like it, and some of the other members were making fun of them, whatever the case may be. Well, what happened was this. There was a major leak in downtown Brooklyn, and the Mario brothers were like, yo, if we fix it, or Mario was like, yo, if we fix this leak, people are going to take us more seriously, and we're going to get more business and more revenue and stuff like that. So they go down there to try and fix this massive leak, and they end up going into the sewers, but they end up going through this pipe that takes them to the Mushroom Kingdom. So here's the thing with the Mushroom Kingdom. Bowser recently destroyed an ice kingdom and took their star and prisoned all the penguin citizens there. So here's what's going on. And now Bowser is going to the Mushroom Kingdom to try to take it over and to try and marry Princess Peach because he's in love with her, which is hilarious. So as the Mario brothers were transported to the Mushroom Kingdom, they ended up being separated. Mario actually lands in the Mushroom Kingdom while Luigi lands in the Dark Lands, which is where Bowser resides. So he quickly got captured and, hanging out with the penguin citizens. Meanwhile, Mario ended up speaking with Toad and Princess Peach. And Peach basically trained him on how to be, Super Mario, with the mushroom and things of that nature. So what happens is this. They learned that Bowser was coming. And then Mario found out that Luigi was captured by Bowser. So obviously Mario joined forces with Princess Peach to 1, save the Mushroom Kingdom, and 2, try to save his brother Luigi. So in order for them to do that, they went to the Jungle Kingdom and they tried to convince King Cranky Kong to, join forces with them so they can stop Bowser before they arrive at the Mushroom Kingdom, wherever the case may be. However, Cranky Kong agrees to help them if Mario defeats his son Donkey Kong in a fight. So, Super Smash Brothers kind of thing. So, despite Donkey Kong's strength, Mario defeats him using the cat suit. And then we get the whole Mario Kart scenario, which was interesting. But Bowser army ambushed them on Rainbow Road. And basically, the Allied forces was messed up. And Mario and Donkey Kong ended up in an underwater level, whatever the case may be. And if memory serves it correctly, I believe all of the Allied forces, with the exception of Princess Peach, got captured. So Bowser made his way to the Mushroom Kingdom, and Mario and Donkey Kong had to work together, even though they had a rocky relationship. But they worked together to arrive at the Mushroom Kingdom and to stop Bowser. And I don't remember how this happened, but Luigi, the penguin citizens, and the Allied forces, they escaped. I don't remember how this happened, but they did escape. And the battle between Mario and Bowser ended up in Brooklyn. And then Luigi joined them, and then they somehow found a star of their own, and it became Super Mario and Super Luigi, and they both defeated Bowser, and he got locked up in prison. And now the Mario Brothers actually live in the Mushroom Kingdom. So, and they begin the day of plumbing work together. There's going to be a sequel because of the secret in it, and it's going to involve the homie Yoshi. So that's going to be fun. I have no clue what the sequel will be. It could be something like a Yoshi Island type of deal. I don't know. But there's going to be a sequel, unless they change their mind or something, and it's going to involve Yoshi. So that's going to be fun. So that was the Super Mario Brothers movie. Now let's move on to number 8, Air. Now, Air, before I get to explaining what this is, let me give you guys some background info on this. So this joint came out March 18, 2023 by SXSW, which is South by Southwest. I don't know what that is, but okay. It then came out throughout the United States on April the 5th, the same day as the Super Mario Brothers movie, which is interesting. I don't remember that, but okay. So this joint was done under Amazon Studios, Skydance Sports, Artist, how you pronounce that word? Artist Equity, there it is, and Mandalay Pictures. So those were the production companies. And it was distributed by Amazon Studios in the United States and Warner Brother Pictures internationally. Now, despite me mentioning Amazon, no, this was released in theaters. It was not just an Amazon-only thing. So, let me give you guys the story behind this one in terms of what the heck is Air, for those of you who don't know. If you know about Michael Jordan, if you know about Nike, if you know about the Air Jordans, that's basically what this is about. This is basically how Nike got on the map. So, in 1984, which is the best year ever, Oregon-based Nike Inc. is on the verge of shutting its basketball shoe division due to low sales. Because during that time, believe it or not, Converse was the leading guys, and I believe they had to deal with Adidas as well. Adidas was there as well, yes. So, here's the deal. In response to this, marketing VP Rob Strasser, how you pronounce the name, along with co-founder CEO Phil Knight, tasked Nike's basketball talent scout Sonny Vaccaro to come up with a new sports posting for Nike basketball shoes. While considering the basketball players chosen in the 1984 NFL Draft, Nike's executives think third pick Michael Jordan is off limits, both being a fan of Adidas and too expensive for the basketball division's media budget. However, once he watches Jordan's highlights in conjunction with an Arthur Ashe commercial for his head rackets, Vaccaro becomes convinced that Nike should pursue who he considers a generational talent, with both brand and athlete building off each other, which is true. So basically, moving on without, going all out of the way, I believe it was Sonny who goes and visit Jordan's parents to try to convince them to basically set up a meeting with them. And he did that. And basically, at the end of the day, what happened was Jordan and his parents, they was like, yeah, they should sign with Nike. Because Sonny learns that Adidas matched the offer while adding a Mercedes-Benz 380 SL, and he thinks the deal would not go through. However, Sonny receives a call from Dolores, Jordan's mom, who states that Michael will sign with Nike on the condition he earns a percentage of every Air Jordan sold, which is unheard of at the time. So, even though Sony thinks the companies high up would not accept this bonus due to industry president, like I said, Phil Knight goes with it, deeming it necessary to ensure the endorsement. And basically, yeah, he really delivered. Jordan delivered. So basically, an epilogue reveals that Air Jordan exceeds Phil Knight's expectations of $3 million in sales and earning $162 million in 1 year, and basically became a steady source of income for Nike. And the rest is history. So obviously, Nike is big time now. And then there's the Jordan brand, which is, if memory serves me correctly, the Jordan brand is under Nike. So they became big time. Nike ended up buying Converse. So, yeah. If you talk about the basketball shoe world, it's really Nike and Jordan. And for the most part, it's nobody else. Yeah, there's other companies, but for the most part, nobody else. But this was somewhat of an underrated movie. It was really, really good. It was really, really good. It was number 8 because, like, there was some funny moments. Obviously, Chris Tucker was in the movie as well, but it wasn't a lot of funny moments. It was but it was some interesting moments in there. I still think it was better than Super Mario Brothers movie, and I think it was better than the Marvels movie. And by the way, the Super Mario Brothers movie, in my opinion, was better than the Marvels movie. So there's that. Because there wasn't a lot wrong with the Super Mario Brothers movie, outside for the fact that they focused more on Donkey Kong rather than Luigi. So there was that issue. But with Air, there wasn't much that I can complain with this one. So there's that. All right, let's move on to number 7. Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. So this joint came out recently. It came out December 19th at the Grove, which is in LA, but it came out worldwide, or really in the United States, on December 22nd. This was the last movie that I saw, obviously. So this came out under DC Films, Atomic Monster, the Safran Company, and Domain Entertainment. Those were the production companies, and it was distributed by Warner Brothers Pictures. So basically, here's what happens. Several years after becoming king of Atlantis, Aquaman, aka Arthur Curry, has married Mera and have a son, Arthur Jr. So basically, he's splitting his life between land and sea. So, he's still being a superhero. He's still attending meetings. He's still, fighting and things of that nature. And, of course, he's still being a father. And he living with his father, or the guy who raised him, rather. So what ended up happening is this. David Kane, rather, the Black Manta, actually. He continued to seek revenge against Arthur for the death of his father. So what happened was this. Somewhere in I don't know where they were at, Antarctica, the North Pole, somewhere, they managed to go beneath the ice, and they found this underwater cavern where they find a black trident that possesses David Kane. So basically, the creator promising to give him the power to destroy Aquaman. And yeah, he got more power. So 5 months after that, they started stealing orichalcum to power Shin's Atlantean machines. And basically, Arthur learned that the usage of orichalcum, which emits a high quantity of greenhouse gases, have not only raised planetary temperatures and basically creating global warming and making it go faster to the point where it could destroy the planet, but obviously it could also destroy Atlantis. So they now tried to go out and stop them, but the problem is they had no clue where it is. So what ended up happening is they had to rely on his half-brother Orm, and they break him out of prison, and because he's the only one who knows how to find him since they worked together going back to the first movie. So they had to go meet the crime lord Kingfish, who provide them information leading to a volcanic island in the South Pacific. So they go over there to try and stop them. And yeah, they've been using the orichalcum and things of that nature. And then what ended up happening from there is this. They left the island because Black Manta knows where the Lost Kingdom is because of the trident. But in order for the Lost Kingdom to be activated, they need blood from royalty from Atlantis. So we're talking about either Arthur himself, Orm, or their mother, who is still alive, or Arthur Jr. So Black Manta, somehow knowing about Arthur Jr., goes and kidnaps the baby and nearly kills the baby's grandfather, by the way, and takes him to the Lost Kingdom. So Aquaman, and Mera goes off to try and stop him. So obviously there's a massive fight because, Black Manta have his army, and of course Atlantis got their own army, so they fighting. And then what ended up happening was this. Aquaman saved his child from being stabbed. I'm dead serious. And he fights against Black Manta and defeat Black Manta to the point where he knocked the trident from him. But Orm picks it up, and now Orm was being possessed. But Black Manta convinced him to drop the trident. And in the process of that, because blood was spared, Aquaman's blood. So now the main villain, who is the king of the Lost Kingdom, he shows up, but he basically gets one-shotted by Aquaman's trident. And the black trident was destroyed as well in the process. And basically the day was saved. Aquaman and his wife decided to let Orm go. And basically, yeah, they decided to reveal Atlantis to everybody. And there was an announcement made at the United Nations. So there you go with that. That's pretty much how the movie goes. Now, this was a really good movie. It was better than the previous 3 movies that I mentioned. The one issue that I have with it was the fact that the main villain, once he was free, he was basically one-shotted. That was the only issue. He was basically one-shotting. Because what happened was, once Aquaman saw him being released, he grew his trident at him. And in the process, if memory serves it correctly, no, he didn't grow his titan at him. He grew the black titan at him. But the main villain caught it. So, which was pretty cool. But then Aquaman grew his own titan, the golden one, at him. And not only does this titan destroys the black titan, but he also destroyed the main villain in the process. So basically he was one-shotted. And I'm like, this dude was supposed to be a badass. Like, he gave Black Manta all this power to go toe-to-toe with Aquaman, Because without it, Black Manta ain't shit. So it was like, and by the way, I guess he died. He fell to his death and not have Aquaman save him. But yeah, the fact that he was one-shotted, I didn't like that at all. So that's why it's number 7. It's not my top 5, but it's still better than Air. It's still better than Super Mario movie, and it's still better than the Marvels. All right, let's move on to number 6, Shazam 2. So Shazam 2 came out earlier this year. We're talking about March 14th at the Fox Village Theater, but it came out throughout the United States on March the 17th. So yeah, the Fox Village Theater, that was in LA. Now, this joint was done under New Line Cinema, DC Films, and the Safran Company. Those were the production companies involved. And it was, of course, distributed by Warner Brothers Pictures. All right, so what this one's about. So 4 years after the first movie, and actually the official title of this one was Shazam Fury of the Gods. It's not, they don't call it Shazam 2, but yeah, that's what it's called. So anywho, here's what happened. 4 years after Thaddeus' defeat, Aspera and Calypso, daughters of the Titan Atlas, breaks into the Acropolis Museum in Athens, Greece, and steal the wizard's broken staff. They take it to the wizard who was imprisoned in the gods realm and force him to repair the staff to reactivate its powers. So here's the thing. Meanwhile, in Philly, the family that makes up the whole Shazam squad, they kind of drifting apart as they grow up and pursue their own interests. So Billy is worried about being kicked out of the family when he turns 18. In a dream, the wizard warned Billy about the daughters of Atlas, prompting the Shazamily, which is a funny name, to begin researching them. So, and then of course, we talking about kids, so they have, for the most part, they have no idea what they're doing. And basically what ended up happening is this. The daughters ended up taking their powers. And one of the daughters, there was a third daughter who falls in love with one of the members of the Shazamily. But because of the fact that she fell in love with him, like she kind of sides with them over her own sister. So basically the daughters starting to fall apart from each other to the point where one of them nearly killed the other, which was crazy. And basically at the end of the movie, Billy almost died himself, but he ended up surviving the final battle. And ironically enough, Wonder Woman actually makes an appearance in this movie as well. Yes, the Wonder Woman who would play, by the ones we've seen in the recent Wonder Woman movies, and of course Justice League and Batman vs Superman. Yeah, that one, Wonder Woman. She made an appearance here as well, which was very interesting. Now, this one was really, really good because there was a lot to tackle here because of the fact that the family was going apart, the fact that we're dealing with kids, and for the most part, they still don't know what they're doing. And yeah, and there was a love interest in here, and we got a cameo from Wonder Woman. So yeah, there was a lot here, and it almost made it to my top 5. And I can't recall anything negative about this movie. It was just that the 5 movies were just that better. They were just that better. But I can't think of anything bad or anything wrong with this movie. I think it was kind of underrated. A lot of people really didn't give this movie a shot. But I thought it was a really, really good movie. It's just that it came out in the wrong year because there was so many great movies that came out. And it prevented this one from making it the top 5. And speaking of the top 5, let's get on with that. Number 5, Blue Beetle. So this one came out August 15th at El Paso, Texas. But 3 days later, which was my birthday, it came out August 18th. So it was under DC Films and the Safran Company. Those were the production companies, and it was distributed by Warner Brothers Pictures. So here's the deal. Jamie Reyes returned to his hometown after graduating from Gotham Law University. Oh, I didn't know about that part. So he basically found out that his family is facing eviction from their home due to financial difficulties. So they got a job working at or cleaning mansion, but they got fired because they kind of was being nosy. And then what ended up happening was this. Because of that, I believe it was Jenny. I think her name was Jenny. I don't recall what her last name was. But Jenny told Jamie to meet her at Core Tower the next day to discuss a job opportunity. So he shows up to try and get a job. Meanwhile, Jenny was having issues with her aunt, and Victoria, by the way, who runs the company, by the way. And what's going on here was this. Victoria found a scarab, a very powerful scarab, where she tried to duplicate its power to create a weaponized army. And Jenny was like, no, this is bad. this shouldn't be happening. And Victoria basically was like, screw you, it's happening. So the next day, Jenny goes into the headquarters. I mean, she works there as well, but she sneaks into the lab where the scarum was in the void security, and she steals the scarum and secretly gave it to Jamie inside of a Big Belly Burger to-go box. So basically, he tells her, she tells him, just get out of here, do not open the box, go, go, go. And then, of course, the alarm goes off, and nobody knows what happened. So, because of Jamie's crazy family, one of them being played by George Lopez, who is hilarious in this movie, by the way, and really one of the main people that made this movie, they open the box, and the scarum attaches itself to Jamie, and basically he becomes the Blue Beetle. So he have no idea how his powers work, and the scarum was talking to him all this jazz, and now he have to defend himself and his family from Victoria and her bodyguard rather, who have a OMAD prototype that is like similar to the scarum, but not exactly. And what ended up happening is this: during their confrontations, Jamie's father got killed, and Jamie himself got kidnapped. So now the family and Jenny have to work together to try and, one, get Jamie, two, and prevent Victoria from duplicating the scarum powers to create an army. And also, by the way, the Blue Beetle is a hero in this movie that's been around for a while, and now basically he's resurrected in Jamie, I guess, or the name Blue Beetle is resurrected in Jamie. So then there's a final battle between him and Victoria's bodyguard, where what ended up happening was Victoria actually bombed her own bodyguard's home country or wherever, homeland, when he was a kid, and she took him saying, yo, I'm sorry about what happened. I don't know who did it, but I would take care of you now. Like, he obviously learns the truth, and both Victoria and her bodyguard were pretty much killed by the explosion. So there's that, and at this point, Jamie got used to being the Blue Beetle. So this was a good movie. This was a really, really good movie. I thought it was worthy enough to be top 5. George Lopez pushed it towards top 5. If George Lopez was not in this movie, this would not be top 5. And I'm going to be perfectly honest. It might have struggled to make it to top 10. It might have struggled. So George Lopez really carried this film, in my opinion. So I really, really like this movie. I can't think of any bad things about this movie. So, but it was still better than Shazam 2. And it was close. It was close between those two. But I went with Blue Beetle over Shazam 2, which is, I want to say, they're both DC films. But yeah, Blue Beetle, phenomenal movie, if I do say so myself. Top 5 without question. Now, let's get on to number 4. Gran Turismo. This one is the most underrated movie of the year. So, this joint came out July 30th at the Circuit de Spa Francorchamps, and it came out August 25th in the United States. So, this was one of the movies that I saw after I returned from Japan, Hawaii, and New York. So, and let me get on with the production companies. Columbia Pictures, PlayStation Productions, and 2.0 Entertainment. Now, and it was distributed by Sony Pictures Releasing. So here's the thing. This is based off of a real life story. So this actually happened in real life. So here's the thing. There was this teenage guy who worked at a clothing store. So, and I think his name is Jen. So this is based off of, him who lived somewhere in Europe. I don't remember where. But what ended up happening is this. He plays, not only does he play video game, but he's really into Gran Turismo, the video game. So he plays it all the time. Like, he got a chair simulator with the steering wheel connected to his PS, 4, 5, 3, whichever PlayStation system it is. So, and then what ended up happening, and then he having issues with his father because his father was a former soccer player, but like his father wanted him to pursue something more realistic, but even though his son, John, wanted to compete, but instead of competing on a soccer field, he wanted to compete in racing. And his father thought that this wasn't realistic for him. But here's what happened. There was a competition that Sony put out there because they want drivers for their, I forgot the business behind it, but they made a deal with Nissan. So basically they want skilled players who played Gran Turismo to race their cars. So they did a competition, and John actually won the competition. So he was basically sent to boot camp. And what ended up happening was this. Prior to boot camp, I try to remember who this dude was, but there was this one guy who was a part of another racing team. And he used to race himself, and he had the potential to be amongst the best, but he messed up and he decided to quit racing. I forgot what his name is. I think his name is Jack. And I don't, yeah. Yeah, it was Jack. So, and what happened was this: Jack left the team. And then one of the guys, I think Danny Moore, he was the one who put this together, and he recruited Jack to basically coach them. Even though Jack was reluctant to do so, he ended up doing it. So boot camp goes on, and you could have been dropped at any moment and all that jazz. So then what ended up happening was this. I don't remember how many people made it to boot camp, but it was down to 5. I think it was down, it was down to 10, and then it would narrow down to 5. And what ended up happening was this. The remaining 5 competed in a final race to determine who will represent Nissan. Jan narrowly won the race against American competitor Maddie Davis. Now, Danny, however, won Maddie to represent their squad because he had personality. He was better commercially. He was better when talking to the press and things of nature. While John was no. However, despite that, John won the race. And he was chosen at Jack's insistence because John knows, but I mean, I'm not saying that Danny or Maddie didn't know, but Jan really knows his stuff when it comes to racing. So, John was told that he finished at least 4th at any one of a series of qualifying races, he will earn a professional license and contract with Nissan. So, his first race, he finished last in Austria after Nicholas taps him into a spin. So, Nicholas, that was the guy from the other team that Jack was a part of, but then he left. So there's that. Despite that, John was gradually improving over the next few races. He did not finish the race in Spain, though. He travels to Dubai for his last qualifying race, where Nicholas takes a corner too fast and crashes. And despite the debris from this crash, cracking his windshield, Jan achieved a 4th place finish and he got his license. He then traveled to Tokyo with Danny and Jack to sign his contract and use his signing bonus to fly Aubrey. I forgot how. Oh, yeah, that's right. Aubrey was a friend of his before he actually left. So he flies her to Tokyo, and they basically start going out while they were in Tokyo. Phenomenal scene, but I mean, it's Tokyo. So, yeah, and with me being to Japan twice, yeah, I can relate to the glamours that is Tokyo. Now, his first race after signing that license, he started the race rail, and he got a high position until the front of his car lifts into the air at a flood patch corner, hitting a barrier and launching into a crowded spectator area. And basically, he was informed while in the hospital that he accidentally killed a spectator. So he was mostly blaming himself, and he was not willing to race again. However, Jack convinced him, and talked to him about why he stopped racing himself and things of that nature. And then, obviously, Jan decides to get back into racing again. And what ended up happening was this. There was this one big race, and it was a team race, and I think it was last in 24 hours. I think it was called the 24 Hours of Le Mans, which was the race that Jack got Jack into retirement because he was involved in a fatal accident as well. So, Danny enlists Maddie and fellow GT Academy participant Antonio Cruz to make up the 3-driver team alongside Jan. So yeah, he raced against them in that 5-man race to get him a part of the team where he had to, qualify to get the license or whatever. So basically, on race day, Jan's father basically apologized for not being supportive of his passions because he saw how successful his son was now. He's like, oh snap, he's doing it big now. And I doubted him, my bad. So obviously the 24-hour race was going on, and there were some issues, but ultimately, Jan, who was racing last, I think they were alternating. They were alternating. So I think Jan started first, and then the other two jumped in. They were going back and forth like that, racing for a few hours, and then they would be replaced by the teammate, and they would sleep and eat or do whatever. So the final lap sees Jan pitted against Nicholas, with Jan once again narrowly in front on the final signal to earn 3rd place in a podium finish for Nissan. So even though they didn't get first, but they got top 3, which was really, really cool. So, and the interesting thing about this is this. The real John was his own stunt double in the film. So he was the stunt double for the guy who plays John, Archie Madegway, how you pronounce his name? So that was pretty interesting as well. So this was a phenomenal movie, highly underrated. The one issue that I have was the lack of the beginning of the movie, it was all about John and his father not seeing eye to eye regarding what John wants to do with his life, which is racing, based off of the video game. But ever since he got into the academy, ever since he won the academy, ever since he got the license and all of that, there was not much of a change of heart from John's father. We didn't see it. We didn't physically see it. We saw the result of it, but we didn't see the change. So that's the thing that I wish we could have saw. Like a clip of him watching his son's races and he going, oh my gosh, he actually doing it. Something. Like, we didn't need a 5-10 minute dialogue from his father, just a little clip of him watching his son races. But we didn't get that. That was like the only nitpick I had about this movie. Outside that, this was a phenomenal movie, the most underrated movie of the year, if I do say so myself. So, there's that. Now, let's move on to number 3. Guardians of the Galaxy, Volume 3. Now, I did not put this here because of the number 3. I did not put this here. I truly believe this was the 3rd best movie of the year. So this joint came out April 22nd, 2023 at Disneyland Paris. I had no clue there was a Disneyland in Paris, but it came out worldwide or in the United States May 5th of this year as well. The production company involved was Marvel Studios, and it was distributed by Warner Brothers Studios and Motion Pictures. So here's the deal. This was really all about Rocket. So Rocket recalls his past life, and the main villain is somebody from his past life, and basically the main villain went to get Rocket. But what ended up happening was, and he hired some, I forgot who he hired, but he hired some high-powered gold dude and his mom to retrieve Rocket. And what ended up happening was that Rocket ended up in a coma, and he was dying. So the Guardians had to go out. They had to find, what's her name? Gamora. Now remember, the Gamora from this timeline was killed by her father, Thanos. So the Gamora here came from another version, another dimension, another timeline. So this Gamora was not in love with the leader of the Guardians at this time. I forgot his name. Star-Lord? I think that's his name, Star-Lord. So she was not in love with him, and she was not a part of the Guardians. She was rolling with another crew doing her own thing or whatever. But she was working with them to try and save Rocket and all that jazz. So they had to break into this one building to get something that they needed to save Rocket, which was pretty much hilarious. And then they had to deal with, I forgot who this dude name. What's the main villain name? I don't remember. He was the higher being. I forgot what his name was. But they had to deal with him as well. And it was actually crazy. It was actually crazy. And, Rocket obviously came at, he escaped death. They stopped the main villain. And then what ended up happening was this. The Guardians went a change. So what happened was this. It was what's his name? Star-Lord? Yeah, Star-Lord. He went to Earth to see his father. So, he was done because Rocket was now the new leader. Rocket was now the new leader of the Guardians. And I believe, the new Guardians consist of Rocket, Groot, Kraglin, Cosmo, Adam, and Phylan, who was one of the rescue children, and Adam's pet, Blurp. So that's the new Guardians, whereas, what's his name? Obviously Gamora was not in it, because, this is the alternate version of Gamora. And then Drax, he kind of retired. He retired with that one chick. Nebula retired. Mantis, I think that's the name, Mantis? Yeah, Mantis retired as well. So, yeah. Very interesting stuff, I do say so myself. So it could create an interesting Guardians of the Galaxy 4 if it happens. We don't know. So that would be interesting. But this was a phenomenal movie. There was not a lot of bad stuff that I saw within this movie. This is clearly top 3 without question. It was just that the other 2 movies that I saw that are higher on this list was just better. All right, let's move on now to number 2, Fast X. So, Fast X, or the Fast and Furious 10. And I thought this was the last movie, but actually this is the first part. I'm not sure how many parts there will be after this. There may be 2 parts. I have no clue. So, here's the deal. This joint came out May 12th, 2023 at the Coliseum, which is in Rome, Italy. That's interesting. And it came out 7 days later, May 19th in the United States. So this was under Universal Pictures, Original Films, One Race Films, Rolf / I'm going to butcher this name, Bombs Films. I did not say that right, but whatever. Perfect Storm Entertainment. Those were the production companies, and it was distributed by Universal Pictures. This movie was crazy. So basically what happened was this. Dom and his team were requested by the agency to steal a computer chip during its transit in Rome. Dom and his wife, Letty, stayed behind with his son, Brian, Little B Macros, while the rest of the team, consisting of Rome, Tej, Han, and Ramsey, travels to Rome. So basically, a wounded Cypher arrives at Dom's house and informs him and Letty that Dante Reyes, the son of drug lord Hernan Reyes, had turned her crew against her and is using them to target Dom as a revenge for his father's death and the loss of his family's fortune 10 years prior. So we're going back to Fast 5. Yeah, where The Rock made his debut. So yeah, there was that. Now, regarding Cypress, she was the main villain in the last movie or the movie before last or something like that. But now she's working with them now because her crew had abandoned her and she was left for dead, but she didn't die. So what ended up happening was this. Dante released a metal ball bomb into the streets, and Dom and Letty showed up, and Dom pushed into the river and basically minimizing the damages. But Letty was arrested, and now the squad is targeted. Like they're being framed for terrorism, and now everybody trying, the cops, everybody trying to get them. So Cypher, I believe Cypher also got arrested, but I think this was on purpose so she can free Letty from prison, even though they fought each other, which was interesting, but whatever. But after they fought, they decided to work together again, which was interesting. Now, Dom's little brother, John Cena, Jacob, rescued Little B and Mir from a squad sent by Dante to kidnap Little B. So what ended up happening was this. Jacob and Little B, they goes off avoiding, because they're also Jacob is also on the running list, and they're trying to escape Dante. Dante have the squad, by the way. So they traveling all around the world to avoid Dante and trying to meet up with Dom. And Dom is trying to clear the name and stuff like that. So what ended up happening was this. Dom team, again, wrong. And then they met up with Decker. So they need Decker's help as well. And it was an interesting scene because Decker met up with Han. And remember, going back to Fast 3, where Han supposedly died, but it was revealed in Fast 6 or 7 that Han supposedly killed Dom. Decker supposedly killed Han, but in actuality, he actually survived it, which was crazy. Like that was just crazy in itself. So that's going on. And then what ended up happening at the end of the movie was this. Jacob so because people like to die and come back in this movie. So Jacob apparently sacrificed his life to take out the guys going after Dom and Little B, because Jacob got Little B to Dom after Dante kidnaps him and things of that nature, but Dom gets him back. Jacob supposedly sacrificed himself. The team consists of Rome, Tej, Han, and Ramsey supposedly shot their plane that they were in, got shot down supposedly, and now Dom and his son. What's going on? The movie ended in the cliffhanger because some crazy vehicle that was on fire was coming towards them, or like a big old, I forgot what was going on. I think it was a bomb or something, but Dom and his son was like in the middle of it, going off or being harmed by it. I don't remember what it was, but yeah, there's that. And then out in Antarctica, which is where Letty and Cypher ended up at, there was some prison out in Antarctica. They were picked up in a submarine by Gazelle, who supposedly died in Fast 6. But yeah, the chick who plays Wonder Woman, she's alive. So I was freaking out when I saw that. And then there's a mid-scene credit where The Rock showed up and Dante going after him because he's the one who actually killed his father. If you recall the Fast 5 movie, he pulled up at the bridge and the dude was like, help me. And The Rock took out his gun and shot him. He's like, that's what killed my team, you son of a bitch. Yeah, so of course, Dante was going after The Rock, a.k.a. Hobbs. So this is crazy. And that's how the first one, that's how 10 ended. So it was crazy, man. There's a lot of cliffhangers here. And it's funny since my top 2 movies ends in cliffhangers. So obviously there's going to be a part 2. And here's what I think is going to happen here, because there was beef between Vin Diesel and The Rock once upon a time. So I'm not sure they squashed the beef, but what I think will happen is this: Fast 10, which is going to be part 1, was, Dom is the main star there. Part 2, or Fast 11, The Rock is going to be the main star, and then Fast 12, part 3, they both go come together. So that's what I think is going to happen. So yeah, there's that. Again, I have no clue how many parts there are with this one, but this is very interesting. Very, very interesting. So now you have to question who's really dead and who's really not, especially when you see old girl put up in the submarine. You got to question it now. All right. So before we get to our number 1, and we all know what it is, let's get on with our honorable mentions. So we're going to go from the worst honorable mention to the first. So let's start off with House Party. So this joint came out January 13th this year. And for those who don't know what this is, basically it's these 2 guys who were working at house cleaners and aspiring club promoters. Basically, they want to have a party, and they ended up doing it inside LeBron James' house. And they invited not just a bunch of people who they charged, but they invited a bunch of celebrities. So we talking like Snoop Dogg, we talking Lil Wayne, I believe Kid Cudi. Yes, they invited Kid Cudi. And there was a small story involving Kid Cudi. And it was crazy. And then, of course, LeBron James showed up at his own house, and it was hilarious. Like, it was funny, but it's not top 10. And out of all the movies I've seen, it was the worst movie of them all. But it was still funny, nevertheless. If you want to watch it, knock yourself out. But if you don't, you ain't losing sleep. And apparently Kid and Play was in this movie. I think I saw them. I don't remember. All right, moving on. Next up is Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. And, oh, gosh, this one. So this joint came out February 17th. And basically, they have obviously their daughter, no, they didn't have a daughter. Their daughter grew up, and she's now got a suit of her own. And they scrunt down towards quantum level. And there's the quantum realm, rather. And there's a civilization down there. So basically, they had to deal with the Kang. They had to deal with the Kang down there. And they end up doing that. The problem is, just like the Kree, the Kang is a major thing. And I'm not saying, oh, they did the Kang dirty here. But with the main leader of the Kang now fired, the guy who plays the main leader of the Kang, he's now fired and arrested, and Jonathan Majors. Yeah, so that's going to be interesting in terms of what they do with the Kang here. Like, they may have to get somebody else, or I'm hearing that they may push Dr. Doom to be the main villain for Phantom 5, 6, 7, whatever. So, but regarding this movie, it didn't, like, it was okay. It obviously was not top 10. I don't know. It just didn't do it in terms of, like, especially with the past 2 Ant-Man movies. The past 2 Ant-Man movies were so much better than this one. So, it just didn't do it for me. It just didn't do it for me. I'm not saying it's a bad movie. It just didn't do it for me. Moving on. The Flash. This joint came out June 16th in the United States. And basically the deal was this. They did a somewhat of an animated movie of this. But basically what happened is this. He thought of the idea. He learned that he can go back in time because of his speed, because of his powers. So now he's like, oh, wait a minute. I can go back in time and stop my mom from dying. Which he did. But in the process, he meet a younger version of himself. And he gave his younger version powers because of what happened, like, because of the timelines, his younger version didn't have powers yet. So he gave his younger version powers. No, what ended up happening was they switched powers. They switched. So his power went to his younger self somehow. I don't remember how that happened. But then he got his powers back. So now there was 2 Barry Allens with powers of the Flash. But in doing this, he changed the timeline. So now Superman is dead. Wonder Woman don't exist, and there's a different Batman, a much older Batman, and now there's actually a Supergirl, and what's his face? Not Kal-El, but Zod was showing up. So this was like the first Superman movie, but there was no Superman to stop them. So they had to release Supergirl from prison because they, once she showed up, they captured her and held her in prison, and then Batman got out of retirement. So now they're going to fight against Zod and his army. But what kept happening was this. Batman and Supergirl kept dying because Zod needed her DNA for something. In order for him to get her DNA, he had to kill her. So he kills her. Batman ended up sacrificing himself. And then what ended up happening is this. The 2 Flashes are able to travel back into time, or they're able to go towards this one point in history where they're able to see everything that goes down. So they keep going there, and then they kept going back in time to try and prevent this from happening. But they keep failing. You know, Kara, aka Supergirl, she kept dying. Batman kept dying. So they keep going back in time. And it was at this point where President-day Barry realizing, wait a minute, it doesn't matter what we do, we can't change anything. But the younger Barry's like, no. And by the way, he went from goofy and silly to more serious. So he's like, no, we gotta keep going, because he fell in love with Supergirl. We gotta keep going. We gotta keep going. We gotta keep saving people. So he keep going back, and then of course, President Barry goes back with him, really to try and stop him. And that was when we meet the second main villain, who is the older version of the younger Barry, who he kept going back in time trying to stop this. So now there's a battle going on between present-day Barry and the older version of young Barry. But when older version of young Barry tried to kill present-day Barry, young Barry sacrificed himself. So young Barry, by sacrificing himself, kills the older version of himself. And what ended up happening was this: the present-day Barry had to set everything back right so his mother could actually die, so the timeline can return to normal. But in the process, he made one change where his father, who was in prison for, because he was not framed, but he was blamed for killing his wife, Barry's mom, even though he didn't do it. But what ended up happening was this: Barry made one change where there was evidence that his father was at the grocery store, so now his father was free. So that's how the movie ended. And then there was a different Batman as opposed to the one that was a part of that timeline, which was interesting. I think it was George Clooney who showed up at the end, which was funny. But yeah, it was decent. It was decent. It was okay. Again, it didn't do enough to make it top 10, but it was cool nevertheless. All right, moving on. Big George Foreman. So this is a George Foreman movie. This came out April 28th. This is basically telling the life of George Foreman and his rise towards being a top fighter before he lost to Muhammad Ali, you know, with the whole Rumble in the Jungle fiasco. And then he retired to be a preacher. But what ended up happening was he needed money. But he actually lost to Jimmy Young after the Rumble in the Jungle. That's when he retired, because he actually had heat stroke and he had a near-death experience. Then he became a preacher, but he needed money. And outside of being a preacher, the only other thing he knew that he could do was fight. So he actually got back into fighting again, and he became a world champion again despite his age. So, yeah. And there you have it. It was a very interesting movie. It was a very good movie, if I do say so myself. And a very long movie as well. It was like over 2 hours. It didn't do enough to make it to my top 10. I kind of wish it did. But it didn't do enough to make my top 10 because it was really because there was other movies that was better. And one of them was a boxing movie, but we'll get more of that in a second. Next up, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Mutant Mayhem. So this joint came out August 2nd in the United States. I was in Japan for this. So when I got back from Japan, this was one of the first movies I saw. So here's what happened. The Ninja Turtles are teenagers. And what's going on here is this. Master Splinter, who is, I'm trying to remember if he was a legit rat or if he was a human turned into a rat. I don't remember. I think he was a rat that became he was a rat that became a humanoid rat, a humanoid mutant rather. And what happened was this. He was chased away by humans because of how he looked, so he had this distrust in humans. So he basically told his sons, yo, don't go to the human world, don't go above, because don't be seen, because humans can't be trusted, blah, blah, blah. But they hooked up with April O'Neil, and, you know, who tried to be a journalist. And, yeah, so basically the deal was this. The Turtles tried to be heroes, April trying to be a journalist, so they kind of worked together to make that happen, because there was somebody out there committing these crimes, but the somebody was another bunch of mutants. So now the Turtles like, yo, okay, we got some other mutants, we got our own kind of blah, 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 until they learned that they wanted to destroy all humanity. So then what ended up happening is this. The Turtles and Splinter and April convinced the mutants to not do it, with the exception of their leader. I forgot who the leader was, but they ended up stopping him from destroying New York because he grew himself into a giant. So, and it was funny because the citizens of New York was working with the mutants to stop the giant mutant. So that was a pretty good ending. And speaking of endings, we saw Shredder. So there's going to be a sequel, and it's going to involve Shredder. So I can't wait to see how that will go. So this was a good movie. Like, graphic-wise, it was kind of like gross, I'll be honest. But it was still a good movie. There was some funny moments in there. So, and actually in this one, Leo actually hooks up with April, which was very interesting. So, yeah, there's that. But again, there were so many better movies that came out this year, but this was high on my honorable mentions list. There was only one movie that did better on the honorable mention list, and that one would be the other boxing movie, Creed 3. So this joint came out March the 3rd, and basically what happened here, oh God, see, and this, again, I had to like groan at this, but check this out. So at this point, Creed retires. He been a world champion. He defended his title, no problem. He retires. He's now got his own gym. So he's approached by Diamond Dame Anderson, who was played by Jonathan Majors. So he was approached by him because they were childhood friends once upon a time. But what ended up happening was this: there was a fight, a gun was involved, and while Creed escaped, and this is the part that was weird though. Diamond Dame was locked up. He was caught. He was locked up. He was locked up all this time, which was weird. So now, and he was like a really good boxer. Like, he was a really good boxer back then. So now he's out. And he wants to get into boxing again. But the problem is he's old. He's around the same age or slightly older than Creed. And this is a young man sport and stuff like that. So he basically sabotaged it where he would get the shot at fighting against the world champion, and he won. Now, he didn't cheat when fighting against the world champion because he was that powerful, but he cheated to get the title shot. I forgot what he did, but he did cheat to get the title shot. And once Creed learned about it, yeah, they came to blows, and now Creed had to get out of retirement, and he had to fight his former best friend for the world championship. And, of course, Creed won, and then they reconciled at the end. And this was a really, really good movie. It was a really good movie, and it sucked that I left out the top 10. It's just that the 10 movies were just better, in my opinion. And they actually cut out some scenes here, because there was a scene where Creed and his wife and daughter, they actually they didn't get arrested, but they went to prison, and there was a prison scene, but they took that out the movie for some odd reason. So I thought that was awkward. But it was a good movie nevertheless. I highly advise people to watch this movie. And I believe, his mother actually died in this movie as well. So that actually happened. So there's that. But yeah, it was a good movie, but it just didn't make my top 10. Speaking of top anything, let's get on to number 1. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. Now, come on now. Going back to my most anticipated movies of the year, I said this was going to be number 1. This was obviously number 1. This was without question the best movie of the year. So this joint came out May 30th, 2023 at the Regency Village Theater, which was out in Westwood, LA. But it came out across the United States in June 2nd. So what's going on here? So basically, there was 2 stories in this movie. The first story was about Gwen Stacy. And basically, the deal here is this. She's Spider-Woman in her dimension, timeline, whatever. And her father, who is a police captain, George Stacy, is unaware of this. So basically, Spider-Woman was framed for murdering Peter Parker, who Gwen, was in love with. So George trying to capture Spider-Woman. Little did he know, George is actually Gwen. So what ended up happening here was this. Gwen was dealing with another version of the Vulture, and the group of Spider-Man showed up to try and stop him, and they did, and they recruited Gwen to the squad. Now we get to Miles Morales. So Miles having issues with his family because he's gone all the time, and there's trust issues and things of that nature because of his duties as Spider-Man. Now, Gwen, and of course, he's thinking about Gwen because, the first movie, and he kind of falls in love with her, and vice versa. Gwen shows up because she's there to try and get the Spot, who is one of the 2 main villains, actually. And, oh my gosh, the main villains. Okay. So, yeah, he's the original main villain here. And Spider-Man, or Miles, already encountered Spot, and he wants to help. But Gwen's like, no, I got it. And then through that, he learned about the Spider Team, which is a group of Spider-Man from all different timelines, all different dimensions, and all that jazz. And the leader of the Spider-Man, I think, which Spider-Man was this? He basically became the second main villain, because what happens here is this. What happened with every single Spider-Man was that they ended up losing somebody close to them, whether it's a Uncle Ben or somebody. They ended up losing a family member close to them. So in Peter's case, it's Uncle Ben. In Gwen's case, I think it's going to be, no, it was actually, in Gwen's case, it was Peter Parker. And then in Miles' case, it was going to be his father. So, in order for that to happen, but like once that happens, then basically all the universes, all the timelines will remain safe. But again, all the Spider-Man had to lose somebody close to them, which is crazy. So obviously Miles didn't want to accept that. And the Spider-Man go after him to try and prevent his father from dying. Where Miles was like, no, I can do both. I can prevent his father from dying, and I can just save everybody. Well, what ended up happening was this. He managed to go to Earth 42, trying to go back to his world, right? Or his timeline or whatever. But he ended up going to the home of the spider that bit him that came from another dimension. So he ended up at that dimension. And in that dimension, his uncle, Aaron Davis, who was the Prowler in his dimension, he's alive here while his father's dead. And Spider-Man does not exist here because of the whole spider not biting anybody in this dimension. Basically, New York City is like filled with crime. Now, the Miles in this dimension is the Prowler. So there's two Miles Morales here. One of them from a different dimension, and the other is the Prowler. And Miles from the other dimension, our Miles, is captured. So now there's like a small group from the Spider-Man or the Spider-Man group trying to find him and send him home. Because it's Glenn and I think Spider-Ham, Penny Parker, the Noir Spider, and Peter B. Now Peter B got a kid who is also like a Spider Girl as well. And also this one, George Stacy is now had found out that Gwen is Spider-Woman. So that's interesting as well. So there's that. So yeah, that's part one. So again, the top two movies are ends and cliffhangers, and they're going to be like at least 2 parts. So this was really, really good. I already got this movie on Blu-ray. I pre-ordered it once I saw it available. I pre-ordered it, came in the mail day one. This was the best movie of the year. I cannot wait for the second part, which should be releasing next year. And then there's going to be a Spider-Woman movie as well, that's going to be releasing in 2025. I can't wait for part 2 of this. This was clearly the best movie of the year without question. So, I'm a card and wrap because I've been going for an hour. So with all that said, y'all know who this is. This is boy New J Gatsby, aka New Stephen A. Smith, saying peace out, y'all, and I'll see y'all next time. Yeah.